Look at what the light did now. Look at what the light did now. Look at what the light did now. It's a short stream today, so you better get in here. I'm banned again from live streaming on Instagram. Otherwise, I was going to do a short Instagram stream because I had a couple of pictures, comments to share, videos to share. Yeah. Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday. Saturday's good. Short lunch today. This morning of episode 1, Ben Shapiro, in my animation series, Professionals. For those of you who don't know, the premise is Jordan Peterson goes back to psychotherapy, not as the client, but as the therapist, and sits with all of these authorized units. I call it professionals because they are the sort of canopy elite class. They're not elite, though. They're just authorized. And they're presented as professionals, and the double entendre with professionals is that they're professional liars. Why do you hate Jordan Peterson so much? Why do you hate Ben Shapiro? I don't hate anyone. I don't even know these people. Why do you... Does Ben's tummy hurt? Yes, actually, in this episode, Ben's little tummy does actually hurt. It's very funny. What was I going to share today? Well, I was going to share a couple of clips. I was watching a debate yesterday. I watch a lot of people on that channel, which I like. That's where I would be included, by the way. But I was watching, like, I think it was like Nathan Thompson and a guy debating this other dude named Snake Was Right, which is obviously demonic. Seemed like a nice guy, though. But I always ask very simple questions at the end of those debates. Very simple questions like, can you do science without experiment? And the answer is usually yes, which is incorrect. Or I ask, is law the result of scientific experiment? And they usually say yes, that's incorrect. That's not right. That's not true at all. There's another question I asked, and it just they're left stumped, but is math science? You know, I would go, modern scientismos would feel the need to say yes, math is science, maybe upward to 80% of the time. And some might catch themselves and they say, well, no, it's like a necessary tool to conduct science, but it's not equal to science. It's not a substitute for science. But most of them will say, yes, it is, because math can construct a model, and in their view, a model is a substitute for science. And they'll also say things like, forgive me because I don't have the pictures and I can't show them on YouTube. One guy said, a law is what describes the theory that follows a scientific experiment. I mean, these people, it's the more you look in and listen, the more it's not surprising that they have diapers on their face. Look at the papi now. Have you seen Mel Gibson's video about the priests, bishops, and the popes? No, I didn't. but I assume it's entertaining. You should have Stefan Molyneux peeking in spitefully through a window. You mean a window in my car? Like a little printout? Stefan Molyneux, if I can get his impression down, I can't really do his impression. It's almost like the way he talks, it's like his lips are sort of magnetically trying to pull closed all the time. Like he's always saying ew. Like everything sounds like he's saying ew. Like his mouth, like he has to get as many syllables out before his mouth just closes. So always about to close. Have you ever gone down the Talmud rabbit hole? Well, I mean, I just reject the Talmud outright. I've gone into Kabbalistic Jewish magic. I have several books on Jewish magic. Jewish mysticism. I have a couple books I have one book based on Saturnalian theology. It's actually a very sought after book called the Cult of the Black Cube. As soon as you look into the stuff, you know, it's just one incoherent, baseless claim after another. Just strung together, just things. It's almost like if you listen to James True talk at all, he basically is the embodiment of a lot of these, you know, half cockeyed developed worldviews. That, again, a worldview or a philosophy must cohesively ground and tie together epistemology, morality, metaphysics, ontology, in a way that it's all ground. And once you realize that everything needs a grounding for it to really be fully coherent, not just partially coherent when it's useful, not just superficially coherent, but a part of a body, you start to realize, oh, it must necessarily, logically come back to an all-knower, an all-knowing, all-powerful author of all things. And they never do. They never take it further. They just sit there in their little spot, in their little tree house, and they go, this feels good. Don't ask more questions. I just got to a nice canopy. I just built the platform for my treehouse, and now you're already rattling at the poles? I mean, just give me a break, Jim Bob. And I'm like, no, I won't give a break. I won't give you a break. No. Will Michael Malice have a therapy session? Absolutely.
Hey, Dr. Peterson, I got you a present. I got you a little present. Yeah, I was at the museum and I got you a little present. Yeah. Let's talk about anarchy. Yeah. I'm definitely the face of anarchy.
I would eat you alive. In a conversation.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say I'm the only voice of anarchy, but I'm one of the leading voices. Yeah. I do most of my anarchy on Twitter, and I write books and talk about a lot of, you know, that's I mean, what else are you gonna do?
Poor little guy. He did nothing to me. I don't care. He's just like gleaming target on the board. Just right there. Boom. It's like a zit. It's like an obvious pimple. So you have Ben Shapiro books then? Yeah. No, he doesn't. Ben Shapiro doesn't look into any of the philosophy. He probably stopped at his bat mitzvah.
Yeah.
I bet you and Malice would have it. The good thing about Malice, which I do respect, is that he can take some brutal jokes. He's you know, he's not someone who gets all flustered. You can basically make fun of him directly, pretty much say anything from what I've seen. He never it's like a good thing and a bad thing. He has nothing sacred. It's like you kind of like enjoy someone who has that thick of skin, even if their voice sounds like that. But then you're like, oh, nothing's sacred. You're like, oh, cool. Nothing's sacred. And then you're like, nah, wait, nothing's sacred. Wait a second. Nothing's sacred?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say nothing is sacred. I would say your bodily your autonomy is sacred. You know, your ownership of yourself. Huh? Joe, I got you a present.
I don't know. I went after Malice in a cartoon, and the response from the libertarian anarchist, anarcho-capitalists was similar, not quite, but similar to the vegans. And that was around the time my big account got banned. They got a little feisty. I'm feisty, but, you know, whatever. So what was I saying? Yeah, math isn't science. And law is not created or distinguished through scientific method. Actually, law has nothing to do with the scientific method. People are like, what? What about a scientific law? There's no scientific law. There's just law. Don't trad on me. Libertarian is a fancy word for pedophile. Yeah, I mean, that would be the drastic hyperbolic statement, which is funny. At a more particular level, I would say it's just a fancy word for Crowleyanism. It's a fancy political acceptable word for do as thou wilt. Yeah. That's what it really comes down to. Because the libertarian, in the basic philosophy, there's nothing, there's no account for general moral decay so far as it doesn't tread on someone's property or hurt someone directly or what have you. And the reality is, the irony is, if you want to uphold the values of said libertarianism, right, or even anarchy, you actually have to get culturally persuasive. You have to intervene. Because what you're trying to do is implement and maintain a philosophy, and a philosophy is not identical to the actions that might be consistent with the philosophy. In other words, there are going to be gray areas in which you need to tend to, but the philosophy itself ends up not tending to those things. For instance, a giant dick-shaped building next to a kid's playground. Okay? What?
Well, start your own school and move the school. I would say move the school first, or build up a wall so you can't see the dick. Or just look away. You don't have to look at it. You don't have to look at it.
Okay, libertarianism. Ben, do you eat chicken off the bone?
I don't actually eat chicken. I mean, it's very rare that I eat chicken. I mean, if I were to eat chicken, it's probably hidden in some sort of stuffing or something like that. I mean, I generally eat basically powder forms of protein, little tablets, sometimes milkshakes without the milk. I mean, I definitely, at this point in my life, eat for sustenance. I don't actually enjoy eating at all. I don't enjoy chewing. I don't enjoy moving my mouth that much unless something's coming out of my mouth, like words. I just generally don't. I mean, it's unpleasant. It is definitely unpleasant. It's almost like, if you could save that energy, you might as well put it towards something else. I see it near pointless sitting at a table with family members, and nothing's getting accomplished. It's like you're simply chewing and you're exchanging little particular things about the day. And some people call that connecting. And I'm like, this is a waste of time, folks. This is the payoff. The payoff for the energy given is not justified, folks.
Jewish have a country. Jews don't have a country, actually. That's a trick. Jews only in about 1948 did that narrative start playing out, where it was like, oh, Israel's the Jewish country. And you're like, no. Israel's the country for Israelis. That'd be like, that'd be like saying like India's the country for Hindus. Like it's not. There's nationality, ethnicity, and then there's ideology or worldview. So it's like India could be a Christian nation. That's actually the argument that ties religion to location, is an argument against the terrestrial expansion of that religion. So if you're a Christian and you want to spread Christianity throughout the continents, then arguing that there is a Christian country goes against the expansion of making and sharing Christianity throughout the world. But I highly suggest looking up an episode of The Dean Show, a Muslim dude who talks with a rabbi named Rabbi Shapiro about that trick. About Ben Shapiro, actually. Search Dean Show, Rabbi Shapiro, Ben Shapiro. Contrary, Jordan and Ben, is skepticism important? Well, yes! And it doesn't escape me the irony or the contradictory aspect of simply saying yes. Because if it were true, I would also say I would be skeptical of the question itself. It's a paradox. When someone asks you, is skepticism good? If you say yes, you're going against it. You're not being skeptical now, are you? Skepticism, I mostly agree with this guy. But the thing is, skepticism, is good until, there's a limit. There's a point at which skepticism just leads you into, confusion and not knowing anything. And there are things that you should, definitely invest your time into, but there are certain things you invest your time into being skeptical about that don't give you anything in return. So it doesn't give you money, doesn't give you any value. There's no point.
The people spending the time, like, questioning the shape of the Earth, for instance, or questioning whether NASA landed on the moon or not. This is ridiculous, folks.
Are legislative laws man's attempt to materialize morality? Yes. If so, is man attempting to be God by acting against the government? No, not necessarily. Many times they do. But as Scripture says, whether it's, excuse me for paraphrasing, someone could write the Scripture in the comments, please. But it's essentially, whether it's kings or governments, the instruction is to lead by God's law. So man attempts, not by forming a government does he attempt to be God. He attempts to be God when he abandons God's law and he tries to make his own arbitrary governments based on the UN, based on progressivism, based on upside down world, based on utilitarianism, based on socialism, libertarianism, capitalism. When they make that their God, they become the Scripture, the authors of Scripture. So the strict answer to that is no, actually. But what ends up happening for the most part is that they assume the power, and whether they start from God's law or not, they eventually are consumed with their own power and status and appeal to their appetites and whatnot. Love Jim Bob's view on everything, but the whole quote is, do as thou wilt, love is the law, love under will. Yeah, I mean, you could add that. It's still baseless. You need a basis for love. Love is the law? Based on what? Who's the basis for love? It's just a bunch of claims. It's like a gun-free zone sign. It's like the non-aggression principle. It doesn't matter if you add 3 more sentences to it. Do as thou wilt. When it comes down to it, you say, no, love is love. I love the kid. What are you going to say? What are you going to say? No, love is the law. No, I agree. I love little kids. I love them. You're going to tell me I don't love them? Okay? I love them. Love is love. Man on man. Beaver bumping. Love is love. Right? Now, you still need a basis. You can't just borrow a transcendental energy called love and just kind of borrow it. Beaver what? Without the truth, one cannot apply love. Absolutely. Yeah, otherwise you're just starting ad hoc with these terms that we kind of all can feel, sense. We know them to be true, like goodness, like morality, like love, compassion, laughter, joy. You can. That's the thing. You could just start from them and without justifying the basis. What's the standard? Once you start from ad hoc, they just exist. That's when people start monopolizing or competing to assert the standard where it's like, no, love is love. Didn't you see the rainbow sign? Add the black stripe to the flag. Pedophiles are people too. Love is love. Logical justification for the Trinity? Well, I mean, that's going to take a little bit longer, but I would say in short, it would be basically transcending the problem of the one and the many, the problem of absolutes and particulars. If God exists and is transcendental, he won't exist in wholeness We wouldn't be able to discern him in wholeness or in particulars. He would have to transcend our limited understanding of reality in all things, which is limited to sets and objects, wholes and parts. And so the Trinity it basically transcends that problem. Because the alternative is understanding God in his oneness, in his wholeness. That would be a claim, that would make him not God. If we can be like, yeah, we understand him in his wholeness, his absolute, in one part, one whole part, we know. So in a way, the consistency is that God's existence transcends how we know things to exist in everything we know. How could it be a car and this other thing? How could it be this and a that? Exactly. But that's a logical approach. The biblical approach is simple. In the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word became flesh. And that without the Word becoming flesh, you can't know God. You can say, I can sense God, I can know that God's real, but the personhood of God, when it comes back to the basis of love, requires a personhood. You can't love someone you don't know. You can't know how to love without a basis, a standard. It's not just some ethereal thing you get from the luminaries. You need a basis. You need a standard. Someone, a person who represents and is equal to God, is all of who God is in a being, must demonstrate in his life the standard of all those things: love, compassion, hardship, sacrifice, long-suffering, forgiveness, being awesome. Otherwise, you're stuck with the Ben Shapiro view. God is out there somewhere. I mean, he's out there somewhere. We can't really know him. We can't have a personal relationship. But he's out there. Somewhere out there, beneath the pale moonlight, someone's thinking of me. Somewhere out there. Jordan, do you believe in God? Well, I've answered this many times, you know. It's like I act as though I do. And isn't that all we can do? Jordan, just say yes. James Pierce, love your work, boss man. Thanks, James. Appreciate you. Why is flat Earth so important? It will literally destroy the slave matrix. I mean, it could. I actually starting to believe more and more that we could never fully discern, view, or observe the creation we've been given. That it's an impossibility. You can't view it. That's my stance. You know? It's like... Yes! No. Slaves are seemingly resolved in their status. They don't want the truth. That's right. Their mask is like a womb for their face. They're like halfway back in the vagina. I've come to the realization that the mask is just the first step back into the digital womb in the physical. And then the next step is the helmet. And then the next step is a float tank that you shit in, and Bill Gates invents something.
Well, the good thing about the tanks that Microsoft and Elon Musk are teaming up to create is that you could be a part of the immersive crypto behavioral game, and you can shit yourself, and then we'll turn that water into your favorite flavor gobstopper. And you won't even need to know it. We call the machine Ready Player Number 2.
Satoshi Bear, $5. Thanks, Satoshi Bear. You scared my cat. Why doesn't Jordan Peterson talk about the tyrannical pandemic? The same reason all of these assholes don't. The same reason he probably takes his lead from Noam Chomsky. It's because it's the line. It's been established. You can't cross this line. Too much ostracization will take away your books, will take away your publishing, will ridicule for going against the safety of all people. There's something about selling extreme danger and safety that transcends selling postmodernism, progressivism. It's acceptable for him to call out those things. It's just like it's acceptable for Shapiro and Steven Crowder to stay on the green-haired 18-year-old commies, but not go, well, what if NASA's lying about everything? You're like, no, I bought the cup so that he can own the 18-year-old with the pink hair, okay? Yeah, but what if NASA's lying? What if WHO and the CDC are connected to a larger scheme to implement the UN New World Order? What if healthcare workers are being groomed to be UN soldiers? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I am. Bernie, does it worry you that the pharmaceutical industry spends 3 times more on political lobbying than the oil and gas?
Well, look, I've said it before. The pharmaceutical industry is like any other capitalistic industry where there are bad actors who act on greed and the bottom line, and that there are some who are actually authentically out for the service of people. But we are in a pandemic of epic proportions. Now is not the time to sift through who is corrupt and who is not. Now is the time to get behind the most corrupt, provably criminal pharmaceutical companies in the world, because they are going to help us end this pandemic so we can get back to the status quo of aborting black babies. To get back to what's important. That the 18, that the 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, all the way up to 35-year-old single black females who are the most oppressed individuals in the world get their fair share of the old hook hanger. And that is why I am getting together with legislators to craft a bill called the Old Hook Hanger Act. which gives every minority access, free access to an old hooked hanger, including men who want abortions. Yes.
The pharmaceutical industry is the oil and gas industry. Great point, Low End Bear. Thank you for that. Absolutely. Does Bernie have a session? Absolutely. Anybody I can impersonate has a session. This is going to be an ongoing thing. I mean, I don't even know how many episodes, because it's not even like every episode is just only one person, because I can bring back people for their next sessions. It's like, I mean, you understand how happy I am that I figured out the format? It's just so exciting. All right, you guys, I got to go. My lunch is over.
Huh? Oh! Yee! Woo! Look!
All right, you guys. Tomorrow's Sunday. Yeah, I'll probably stream tomorrow. Check in with my mom. See if Mom Bob is down for a late nighter. All right, you guys. Almost there. Almost better. All right, you guys. Keep you posted. The animation, first episode should be done probably by Tuesday. And I'll post a snippet of it on my Instagram, YouTube. Again, the wholeness of it will be on unauthorized. All right.
Have a good day.